You can say, this may sound outlandish, may sound, well, why will anybody think that? But for example, an implication is, if you think that boarding school is a preferred option, that is that a child who is 10 or 11 or 12 can be wrested from his parents and sent to some hundreds or thousands of kilometers away in the name of schooling. And then he turns himself, or you turn the child into a visitor. Once every 3 months, he breezes into the family. After 3 weeks or so, he goes back again. Is he really being educated at home and by his parents? So these are views that we all hold somehow, and they are not adequate. I would say that as a point. We can talk about it later on. Okay, so now let us look at the environment in which education takes place. Environments, that is the context in which education takes place. In fact, I used to, when I gave this kind of presentation in the past, I used to have 3 environments, but I've been forced to add a 4th one. Obviously, the home is one, the school is one, so is the society. Now we can also add the virtual environment, because that is big. In fact, perhaps it is even it's contending for the larger or the largest of all the environments. So these are different places where a child finds himself being influenced, positively or not so positively, being educated, being taught all sorts of things, values, morals, or the opposite. So these are the environments in which we find ourselves. But I colored the home environment differently. I colored it yellow, because it is not just an environment where a child is educated. It is an environment that is also supposed to control all the other environments. That is also supposed to keep an eye on how the other environment, the school, the society, the virtual environment, shape, help, support, strengthen the individual, or the other way around. So the home environment is not just one more educating environment. It is very, very unique, because it is only in the home that somebody, truly speaking, is loved unconditionally. If in a school, for instance, or in a society or in a community, somebody just does not comply with rules, he's not cooperative, he's a detriment, his very existence is a detriment to the lives of other people, then he has to be sent out of that place, can be put in prison. In some cases, he can even be, for example, let's take a very simple one, a child who just does not adjust to school life can be sent away. That is called expulsion, or you just don't meet up in terms of your strength or the qualifications that are required to be there. For example, in the university, you are not able to keep up with the GPA that is required, you can be sent out, and rightly too. However, in the home, nobody is sent out of the home. No child is sent out of the home for any reason, normally. So we are loved for who we are. That is where people learn to be who they are. That is where people really learn freedom in the good sense, in the true sense of being who I am and being able to receive all the support and strength that are required from those who love me. It is in the home that one is formed. It is in the home that one learns a lot of things. Many times when we think of education and learning, what comes to our mind is academic learning. And as a matter of fact, academic learning also goes on in school. People learn, especially if the parents are formally educated, they already begin to learn a lot from their parents. So a lot of academic learning goes on at home, but much beyond that, a lot of learning in culture, in morals, in values, in good manners, dress skills, how to talk, how to live with other people, how to socialize. As a matter of fact, we begin to learn how to relate with people, which is a skill that every human being needs. We begin to learn it at home, thanks to our parents, our siblings, and all the other people that make up that family. Even domestic workers, one begins to learn, and parents are there helping him to refine his ways and manners. So a lot of learning goes on in the home. And there is a very interesting and specific focus on the person. Unlike in society, for instance, the society focuses on the collectivity, and that is proper, that is good. The school focuses on the person, but to a less degree as a family. In the school, we find a lot of competitiveness, which is good, but in the home, not so. In the home, you must learn to be who you are first before you begin to compete. But if that is not there, if you're not well strengthened as far as what your qualities are, what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are, with a view to gradually overcoming them, then you are not going to be able to learn to compete later. Of course, in the larger society, there's a very, very harsh competition. Of course, I put some dots there against virtual society, that there we find the good, the beautiful, the bad, and the ugly. Who is going to teach the child, guide the child, support the child in wading through all of what technology presents to us today? It is the home. It is the family. So the family is, in short, a big deal as far as being an environment where children are educated is concerned. And who are the ones that head that family? The parents. It goes without saying. Am I on the next slide, please? I'm sorry, I have to be asking this. Am I on the next slide?
Yes, you are.
Yes, you are.
Okay, so following from what we have just said from the last slide, you can say that education happens seamlessly in every home, and parents are therefore also protagonists. Yes, teachers are protagonists. Yes, children are protagonists, the child who is being educated. But parents are indeed a very strong protagonist. They are actually the first and the aboriginal educators of every child, their own children, or those who are in their care, their wards. They are the first and most important educators. And then the family is an environment where education takes place, as we've already said. The context of that education is love, freedom, and responsibility. And as a matter of fact, in most homes, in every home, a child begins to learn to be responsible when he's very young. I remember when I had a younger brother, it was the third after me. Of course, that was the first younger brother I knew, because my immediate junior was just 2 years younger than I am, and I wasn't aware of what was going on when he was born. But the third one, I knew him, and it was somehow very interesting, intriguing. Now suddenly I found myself, making an effort to support, to help, to carry somebody else. It looks very little and it looks like nothing, but the truth is, one is already learning to become responsible for another. One learns it in the home, and then it is they who determine the depth and the influence of all the other educational environments. I already mentioned it in the last slide. The home prepares the child for the larger society. The true protagonists of education are the teachers, the parents, and the students. Now, it is the preferred and perfect community as far as education is concerned. The school, therefore, must be an extension of the family. You see, because you also don't want to yank the children away from the environment in which they are growing up, an environment that suits them, an environment where, the first environment, actually, if you want, is the womb. The first educating environment is the womb, and it is the most comfortable place. No wonder children in the womb don't cry. I hope I'm right, But once you come out, you enter, and it's like it's a seamless growth and development. Now, if the child goes to school, and the school is so far off from his home, as far as the values, the morals, and the learning, and that environment, as a matter of fact, is concerned, then it jars the development of the child. And so the school and the family must work together, and the school should be like a continuity of the family. Okay, the last point there says that the school home makes an unbeatable combination for the child's education. School home, that is to say, the two working together, hand in hand, supporting, collaborating, is the best combination that we can possibly have. When the school and the parents collaborate in the task of education, the child stands a greater chance of receiving a complete, wholesome, and an all-round education that prepares him for life. This is the goal of the family advisory system, which is what we are here to talk about, as a matter of fact. We've laid the groundwork to talk about the family advisory system, hopefully. I hope I have convinced you, so to speak, that it is important, or that parents are important as far as the education of their children is concerned, and that it is important that they work together with the school. So now, how does this happen? How do parents participate in the education of their children in the school? This is what IWFI has worked on for many years. I can proudly tell you that the teachers in my school, practically all of the teachers over the years, have attended the training program that IWFI carries out for advisors to prepare teachers and staff in general to coach students, to work, to function as advisors, okay? So this is what we call the advisory system. In short, one can say family advisory system, but let's just call it advisory system in short. Helping parents in their children's education through a personalized or individualized educative process. Personalized. It's interesting because even when you have twins, I don't know, even identical twins, you will see that each of them is still very unique and unrepeatable. So it's an attempt to truly help a child, according to what he requires. Give a child information that is adequate to him, help him to learn at his own pace, and then all round. It is an all-round formation, all-round education, not just academics. The advisor, therefore, ought to have certain qualities because the job indeed is lofty. The job is demanding, the job is very personal, and it's also delicate. It is like putting the child of another parent in the hands of someone else. Let us say of a stranger, because, apart from being a teacher in a particular school, who is he really to the parents? So that person must embody certain qualities. And that is also what the IWFI Training Advisory Formation course attempts to do, and the continuous training that happens in the school. That the advisor be a person who is mature, who is emotionally balanced. So it is not just anybody. Because I'm a teacher, I can be an advisor. No. He must have those qualities, and those qualities must be continually honed. It has to be given a lot of dedication, a lot of commitment, the desire for he himself to improve. Because now we are talking about becoming a role model. In fact, is one of the points there. It's becoming a kind of support, a direct support to the parents or the child. So the question is, who are you? Who are you? You are who you are, but would you like to be better? Are you trying to be better? Do you read books on parenting? Do you read books on advisory? Do you read books on adolescent or child psychology? Is there an attempt to know that child, to understand that child? Do you reflect on the engagements you have with him and with his parents? So all of these things go on in the heads of the advisor, and they are continually informed and encouraged to try to improve. And then, of course, it is like the work of gardening, of planting a tree or planting a plant. Let it germinate and let it grow. It takes time. It doesn't happen overnight. So the advisor, like a good educator, needs a lot of patience. Otherwise, it can be frustrating, When you deal with children, especially boys, I don't know about girls. I've always had to teach boys. I've always worked in boys' schools. But I guess our human beings are the same. But you will discover that you keep on harping on the same thing. You keep on, and this is actually what mothers do. Mothers harp, fathers to some degree also. You keep on saying the same thing, and it looks like you are not making any headway. But indeed, something is happening. Slowly, but steadily. There is a big difference between harping on those things and doing nothing. And then the advisor has to be positive thinking. He has to be empathetic. He has to be able to put himself in the shoes of the children that are entrusted to him. He can never give up on anybody. One thing I have learned as an educator over the years is never, never, never to label a child. They will keep surprising you. And oftentimes, if you do your work well, those surprises are always pleasant. So never to label or to give up on a child. Then there has to be security and serenity. The child has to feel that the advisor is a shoulder I can lean on. He has to readily, it's not about come here, sit down, tell me. No. It's something very natural, if you don't like your advisee, if you don't like the boy you're advising, or he doesn't like you, let's just leave it at that superficial level, then maybe it's better that relationship doesn't continue. Because it shouldn't be forced, so to speak. And then the advisor should be available and approachable. He has to understand that this relationship, a boy may be coming or a child may be coming to you to complain about something that looks stupid. But for him, it's a big deal. They took my water bottle. I can't find my biro or whatever. Or he said I'm stupid. Okay. But depending on his class, depending on his age, you may give it some seriousness. So never to give the impression that I'm too busy. Other things are much more important to me. Then the advisor must also take care of confidentiality. There are certain things a child may tell you, for instance, about the family, about himself, those things can never be a subject for public consumption. So you see, it requires that the advisor be a refined person, a personable human being who understands, who has common sense and understands what to say and when. Okay, he has to fulfill his promises, be far-sighted. I think it ties in with the thing of patience. You are not just preparing this child for now. You know, many times, especially with pressure of passing exams and scoring, getting high scores, we may become a bit, fire brigade approach. What's your exam? What's your result now? What can we do next term? But keep in mind that you are preparing that child to become a very good father of a family in the future, a very good member of the society in the future, a change agent in Nigeria. You know, so we have to have that in mind, and therefore not to be too upset because of one little failure. I mean, we all have our failures. Then give advice without lecturing. The advisor should not be somebody that has, children don't have a lot of patience for long talks. They don't, so you have to pick what you are presenting to him, package it properly, present it, and that is it. Leave it there. You are not going to turn him into a sentence at one sitting. And then learning how to listen to what is said, and also listen to what is not said. Because many times they don't tell you things, not because they don't want to tell you, but because they themselves don't quite know how to say it, or they don't even know what it is. So we have to listen to The advisor ultimately must be a role model and must have basic knowledge of child psychology. So you can see that really it is a very interesting preparation. And then what are the things one talks about? I would say everything. So what I have here on the slide are just examples. I began with academics because we are talking of a school. In a school environment, academics is a big deal. And academics is a whole world in its own right. The boys study at home, the boys learning in class, the boys' attitude to work, the boys' homework, whether he has a timetable. There's a lot to do as far as academics is concerned. And even little details like keeping his notes. I remember many years ago when I used to advise JS1, JS2 students, my trick was always to ask them to come for that meeting with their bags. And I would just open the bag, bring out their books, and I would just be paging through their books while we were discussing other things. I know, looking through those books tells you a lot of things. You will see the comments of the teachers, you will see some gaps, you will see some things that are very well written, you will see how neat it is. So you comment on, so academics is a big deal in that advisory. In addition to that, many other things, life, personal hygiene. If you sit down with a boy and talk with him, invariably you will see his nails. You will see his nails. You know, these days, children rush away from home to go to school. Maybe, for example, if you're in Lagos, they get home very late. Really, parents don't get to see them all. Parents don't get to look at them. Some don't brush their teeth, Some never cut their nails. Some have disheveled hair. Yeah, so the advisor at least should notice certain things and advise. That is why that's the job now. Tell him, explain to him, and help him to craft out the time to do some of those basic things. And then we discuss his relationships at home, in school. How does he relate with his siblings? Is he helpful? Is he loving? Is he empathetic? Is he a very proud, obnoxious kind of human being? Without using those words, of course, but we can always engage them. And oftentimes, what you discover advising children is that you are telling them the same things that their parents tell them. And the big thing there is that it reinforces the education their parents are giving them. So, and that is good. And then, of course, virtues, the whole world of virtues. Depending on their age, you see that some virtues are very appropriate. A boy, for instance, order is a big deal. Order, being studious, being responsible, being sincere, that is being honest, basic honesty, which is a very important virtue. If a child is not honest, it is very, very difficult to help him because you don't know what his problems are. The parents can't help him because they don't know. And oftentimes, it is the parents that make it difficult for children to be sincere because when they tell the truth, they get heavily punished, So it's a tricky thing. Honesty, of course, there are many, 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 many other virtues. That one, on the go, you teach virtues through not just by teaching the virtue itself, but through your example, and also through what is called guided practice. Guided practice. especially in the area of order, in the area of sincerity. There are many areas in which you have to guide a child to learn how to form the good and right habits, how to use their time. Spirit of service. Nigeria needs it a lot. Nigerians need to be people that have that embody service, especially our leaders. Leadership equals service. And then it starts at home. Leadership starts at home. That older sibling is now the leader, especially when the parents are not at home. Is he serving the siblings? You know, work habits, cultural formation, and so on and so on. So the question will now be, how long will this advisory last? Not long. Once in 2 weeks, more or less, not more than once in 2 weeks. And of course, whenever the child has need, no problem, he can barge in. But ordinarily, once every 2 weeks. And for some of them, especially those who are very young, let's say in primary 1 and 2, just 5 minutes is enough. How are you? What's going on? What did you eat this morning? It is advisory. You are showing that you care. You are showing that you are available. You are listening to him. You'll be amazed what can happen in those 5 minutes, you know. And then for the older ones, perhaps 10 minutes. And then the next step, 10 to 15 minutes. For the adolescents, there may be more things to talk about because they have a better understanding of themselves. They have more issues, perhaps, you know. So more or less, once in 2 weeks like this, it looks very little, but over 6 years, over 5 years, over 3 years, you will see that you have more or less got a kind of relationship with that child that may even be for life. I have boys that I advised many years ago that I'm still in touch with. In fact, one of them came to school once. I was in White Sands at that time. He came visiting. He had graduated 2 years back. He studied in the UK. So he came visiting with a girl. And I thought it was his sister. But lo and behold, it was a girl he was going to. In fact, he came to get married to that girl. And the first thing he thought of was to introduce the girl to me. So I told him not approved. Of course, I approved. Who am I to approve? Anyway, I told him it was approved and I was very happy. You know, because part of my job was also to prepare him to be a great father of a family. And so I felt that, yes, that was success. So all of what we have said now, what we have talked about so far, has to do with advising the child. But that is just one side of the coin. The other side is advising. You remember we said the complete name is family advisory. So that advisor must work with the parents. In fact, if he doesn't work with the parents, he's wasting his time. He must work hand in hand with the parents, communicate with the parents on an ongoing basis. So there's a standard thing, which is the advisory meeting with parents that happens once every 3 months, which is once a term, once a school term, at least in the secondary and primary schools. That the parents, father and mother together, sit down with the advisor for a short time, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, more or less, whatever is adequate to the needs of both sides, to discuss that child, not to discuss the school, not to discuss Nigeria and how to take over Abuja. No. That child is the subject of discussion. His struggles, his efforts, his, what he needs, the challenges, the targets, he's like a project. So we are discussing this project now in order to get him to become better. And of course, thanks to this, the advisor is well informed about how that child carries out all of the information he's receiving in school at home, and the other way around too. So the parents get to know about the life of the child in school. You know, oftentimes you see a child at home, you see him, this is how he is, but he's in a house of, 6 human beings. Suddenly he's in a school of 1,000 people or 500 people, as the case may be, in a class of 30 other children. How does he function? How is he at sports? What other activities does he engage in school? So all of those things are very critical in helping to see how to make that boy the best human being that he can be. Okay, so it's a very wonderful thing that the parents come for that meeting. And oftentimes, when they come, in fact, most times they are very grateful because they discover that, wow, it's like, I now know my child even better. And the advisor is also very grateful because, he now knows the advisee even better. We talk about advisee, it can be. Okay, so I have here, I don't know if I should go into, I don't know how much time I have. I have 3 stories, stories that are somehow, they bring out some of the things that I have tried to highlight. If there's no time, maybe I will just take the first 2. I titled the first one, John Bull the Bullying. It is something that really happened. The only difference is that the name wasn't John Bull. Whenever I want to talk about somebody anonymously, I like to use John Bull because you never meet any human being called John Bull. I haven't met one yet, So John Bull was a boy I advised many years ago. at White Sands School. And he was in JS1. He had just been admitted. This was first term. And in a very short time, within 3-4 weeks, the boy had beaten up all the boys in his own class. He was so strong, broad-chested, pugnacious. You know, he had fought and beaten all the boys in his class. And then he moved to the other class during break, of course. He grabbed all the students in the other, one by one. So somehow it was as if he wanted to show that he was the strongest, the most macho boy in the whole of JS1. And of course, all the teachers, because one thing that happens also when you have this system is that the teachers that relate with any student will normally come to the advisor if they have an issue, be it good, bad, or ugly. So all the teachers were streaming into my office during breaks or whenever they were free to report John Bull to me. John Bull did this, John Bull did not do that. And of course, I kept on talking to John Bull, kept on advising him on the need to be respectful to other people. Now, one day it occurred to me to just ask him whether his father beat him at home. And of course, his response was immediate. Of course, every day, every day. And in my heart, I said, of course, why not? If I were your father, I would do the same. You know, so anyhow, but then I said I would need to see the father as quickly as possible. We were still arranging because the father was a very busy person. Only the mother wanted to come, but I insisted the two of you have to come. So eventually they showed up. So they showed up, and I was so happy. As soon as the man entered my office, I said to myself, this is John Bull's father. Huge, broad-chested, tall, you know, big guy. Anyway, so we introduced ourselves, we started talking. And of course, the first thing I brought up immediately was this matter. Your boy is a bully, beating up all the students. He, you know, of course, the man wasn't too surprised, but he was angry, more or less. And then I now told him something that somehow surprised him, that I thought that he should stop beating him. You know, I told him first that the boy told me that you beat him every day. And the man's response was, of course. You know, so I now said, I think you should stop beating him because I think that he has seen this as a legal, the most legitimate way to solve problems. So perhaps if you stop beating him, he would also stop beating his friends. You know, so the man he paused a bit and he said, can I send for my son? I said, yes. So I called the reception downstairs and he sent for the boy. And the boy came in. In fact, as he was coming, you could hear his footsteps. Very brash, very loud. Of course, as soon as he came by the window and saw his father inside, he shrank. So he came in like a lamb, and his father asked him to sit down. And the man surprised me because he looked at him and said, John Bull, my son, your advisor said that I should not beat you again. Okay? I will not beat you again. Go to your class. Wow, it was as dramatic as that. So John Bull disappeared, went to his class. In the next 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks till today, John Bull never lifted his hand against anybody again. John Bull became a gentleman to the core. A gentleman to the core. Today he's married with 3 kids, beautiful kids, wonderful human being, doing very well in the UK. That is the story of John Bull. The second one, because I'm not sure I have time. Okay, the second one, let me quickly go through it, is the case of another boy, again, JS2 this time, not JS1, JS2, but very small boy, very small. The problem was that he was failing all his exams, and of course, his mother came to see me, complained that the boy never studied at home, all of the timetables he were given, all of the plans we made in school, he never implemented them. He was just nonchalant as far as his studies were concerned. And I kept on advising him. But then one day, he came for advisory meeting, and I was going over this whole thing again. Take your studies seriously. So I now dared to tell him that if he didn't take his studies seriously, because he spent all his time watching television, I said to him, if you don't study, if you don't take your studies seriously, when you grow up, you won't be able to watch television. He said, why not? I said, because you won't be able to buy your own television. You'll be very poor because you won't have money. The boy smiled and said, but I'm already the MD of 5 companies. I said, what? Now, I knew the mother was a widow and his father, his father had died. I said, what do you mean 5 companies? He said, yeah, that his father had 5 companies before he died. And his mother had told him that he was the MD of those companies. I said, is that so? Anyway, so I just found a way of ending the advisory. The next time I saw the mother, I told her this story. And I tell you, that was the changing. Now, it was at that point that John Bull changed. Of course, I'm sure the mother did what she should do, and John Bull now realized that, well, I'm not the MD of anything yet, so let me better take my work seriously. Okay, the other one is longish and is very long. Okay, so we are wrapping up now. We are wrapping up, thanks be to God. The point is that the advisory requires a lot of preparation. And this is where IWFI has been very, very, very useful to my school, at least, and also to White Sands School, and I guess to many other schools and institutions around, because they train teachers to become advisors. I have just listed a few of the topics that they go through. It's a one-year training, but it happens that it's in 3 modules every holiday, during every holiday. So it's a certificate course, as a matter of fact. We paid for it, and it was well worth it. You know, so temperament, character, personality, collaboration between parents and school, child, parent, communication. So it's in a nutshell, it is to help the advisor, the teacher, to understand all of what goes on around the child and around the family in order to be able to help them very well. Okay, so this is now on the side of the advisor. The advisor has to be properly trained. He has to be ready. He has to be prepared to do this job. Now, what about the parents? Somebody can ask, what about the parents? Are they tooled up for the work? Are they tooled up to collaborate with schools in the education of their children? Do they know what it takes? The fact that I have children, is that all it takes to bring up a child and bring him up in the best possible way? Yes, the answer is no. So there are also many, in fact, it's very gladdening to see that online, and just looking through online, you see a lot of activities, formative activities, educational activities for parents. You know, so I know one, in fact, I know 2, because I'm directly involved in one. The family enrichment course that the teachers in our school go through every year. The parents of the students of our school, as the children are coming in, and then afterwards. And I know that the body that organizes it, the Nigerian Association for Family Development, does it for parents as soon as they get married, as soon as they have their first child. So it's classified according to the ages of the children, from what they call first steps, then to letters, to pre-adolescence. So in secondary school, we do pre-adolescence and adolescence. And then a parent attends these courses, he comes out understanding what he's called to, really. And you find it very exciting. You see, if you know what to do, you get excited about it, and you love it, and you see it working. If you don't know what to do, you carry the stick in the name of discipline. Stick is not discipline. There are 2 different things, you know. But when you are frustrated and you don't know what to do, Shakespeare would say, speak hands for me. You know, speak hands for me. Sorry, hands don't speak. You know, you need to walk. You need to walk it by talking, by explaining, by who you are. You know, of course, punishment is all part of it too. But it's not about just venting one's spleen, as it were. And then we also have the Parents First, which is a training activity. In fact, it comes as a monthly seminar for parents, and it's free. As a matter of fact, the next module for this, the module for this month happens right tomorrow, and the topic is parenting with a purpose. So every month there's a topic for almost 2 years now. It's been on, and it's powered by my school. So I'm proud to say that. Anyway, all of these are avenues through which parents can learn to do their work better. And then to work, a parent cannot think that once you send a child to school, the school will educate him. Alive. You have to work with the school. You have to be involved. And if the school where your child attends does not allow you to get involved, then that is not fair, you know, because it is your child. But don't go and try to run the school for the school. That's a different thing entirely. It is not, it's a professional work that the school has to do. But the education of your own child, the values, what your child is receiving, the morals, you must be interested. The human, even the academics, why not? You must be interested in what they are learning, you know. Okay, so by way of summary, let's just recap that parents are the first role model of their children, the first educators. Parents and educators must never usurp the place of parents. Schools and educators must never usurp the place of parents, but bolster their irreplaceable responsibility as the first educators of their children. The advisor must continuously follow up their advisees and collaborate with the parents for an all-round formation of the child. And then finally, even though we didn't have so much on this, but I think it's implied in all of what we have said, that the policy makers in our nation should strongly consider a program of continuous training for parents. And I would say through the schools, that is the easier way, the easier route, in their lofty task of educating their children, particularly in their character and morals. And then secondly, that family advisory system should be introduced in schools. If I have any dream in this life, it is to see many, many schools adopt this because it works wonders. Okay, so as a way of saying bye-bye, just this quote. This is a quote from a poet called William B. Yeats, who lived, I think he died in 1939. A great poet, a writer, and a dramatist. It's a poem, it's like a letter that he wrote to his girlfriend, to his lover, Maud Gods. And he's basically saying, I wish I was very rich. I wish I could buy the best possible things for you. But because I'm poor, I will just give you the poorest thing that I have. But please take good care of it. Anyhow, so it goes like this. Had I the heavens embroidered cloth, enwrought with golden and silver light, the blue and the dim and the light cloths, and the dark cloths, of night and light and the half light, I will spread the cloth under your feet. But I, being poor, have only my dreams. I have spread my dreams under your feet. Tread softly, because you tread on my dream. You know, it's that last line that I find very fascinating. Tread softly, because you tread on my dreams. You can put this poem in the mouth of your children, in the mouth of our children, in the mouth of Nigerian children, telling us adults, I have put everything under your feet. Our children have put their very life, they have left their future at our feet. Whether we are educators, we are parents, we are policymakers, the children's future have been laid down at our feet. Let us be careful. Let's tread softly. We tread on their dreams. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, sir. This has been a very enlightening, enriching presentation. You've shared a lot with us. In fact, I was taking notes at the point I couldn't continue taking notes anymore. Okay, so I think let me just mention one or two things I took, which is education happens seamlessly in the home, and the parents are the protagonists and first educators of their children, while the family and the home is the perfect educating environment and community for the child, while the school should be an extension of the family. So there should be no what is taught at home shouldn't be undone in school, and what is taught in school shouldn't be undone at home. This is my own understanding of it. I believe we all had a lot to get from this. Thank you so much, sir. So we have some questions. So we don't run out of time. We have some questions that have been dropped in the chat room. I'll read the first one. Okay, the first question asks, how do you support a child that is struggling with being honest and telling the truth? I think that's the first question.
So he's struggling with being honest. That's already good now, because he's struggling. Although you could also mean that he has difficulties being honest. I think that's what the writer meant to say. Yes. I would say yes, it's tricky, because why do children tell lies? Basically because they don't want to be punished. And why do they also tell lies? Because they often do the wrong thing. You know, so if a child doesn't do many wrong things, he will have less occasions to tell lies. But I think that if you are close to a child and let him understand that when he tells you the truth, when he does what is wrong, that he should tell the truth. If he tells the truth, you talk to him. If one is in the habit of being too quick to beat, nobody loves to be beaten. I mean, we're all children now. Anything you can do to avoid that cane, you know, even to be reprimanded, we don't like it. But then, do you really gain much? What do you lose if your child starts being truthful to you? You lose him, really. Because then you don't know what he's struggling with. You don't know what his problems are. You know, so there is a quote from the founder of Opus Dei, St. Joseph Maria, which I like very much. And I actually try to practice it, and I recommend it to all of you. If you are angry about something he says, don't react, don't say anything. Wait for a day or even longer, even 2-3 days, and then make your reprimand. Try it. You will see when you are angry, even when you feign non-anger, when you just try to pretend that you are not angry, children can see through it. So if you're not angry and you make your correction works, so whether for children or for adults. So let's gradually form the habit of correcting children, pointing out to them what they have done wrong, and maybe explaining why it is wrong, you know. And then, so beating becomes very, very few and far between. You see, when we are too quick to beat, our children become liars. Many of us grew up as liars because we couldn't face the truth. Children make a lot of mistakes. Children are clumsy, they destroy things, and it's not good because they are not happy, you are not happy, nobody's enjoying himself. So I would say be close to your children. Be close to your children, be patient, be patient. Don't fight every battle, pick your fights. If you have to fight everything, you are so perfectionistic, you are so much of a helicopter parent, you want to make him, I don't know, a guru, an Elon Musk in one day. You want to correct everything. You can't correct everything. There are certain things that one should ignore. There are certain things that one, So anyway, but it's not easy to give a perfect answer to some of these things. It's life. It's life.
Thank you very much, sir. I think Sylvia's question has been addressed with this your response, because it's also asking how do we balance between a child doing something wrong and being honest? Does that mean that we shouldn't punish or we shouldn't discipline in such a situation? I don't know if you...
Yeah. So it depends on the circumstance. Sometimes, yes, you can punish. Sometimes you can, one punishment, I don't like that word. Okay, it's good, Sham, fine. But I would say, let him see the consequence of what he has done. I mean, maybe that consequence will mean some kind of denial, some kind of removal of privilege, I don't know. But beating is what I am not a fan of, really. I'm not a fan, especially for somebody who is already an adolescent, even pre-adolescent. Beating somehow traumatizes people. And you can go overboard quite easily. And when you beat children, those children beat other children. When you beat your children, usually when you go out of the home, when you're not around, they beat their younger ones. And they beat their neighbors and they fight. In schools where teachers cane children, a lot of fight happens. I went to school too. In my school, we don't cane children, and there's nothing, no issues. They learn to play sports, they learn to talk, they use their word, they use their tongue to talk, to explain, to make their points. There's no need to strike as if you are dealing with animals. A child is a human being. The fact that there's an age gap doesn't mean you have a right to beat him. After all, you don't beat your colleagues at work simply because you are 65 years old and the fellow is 30 years. You now say, kneel down and hands up and bring a cane and start hitting him. Nobody does that. Why? But you can also find teachers who are 30 and students who are 18. That age gap is less than the other. Because that kind of pain, inflicting pain, has a way of destroying that honesty that we are looking for. I'm not saying we should be permissive, mind you. I'm not saying we should be permissive. No, that is not good.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we have a question here. It says, how do you support a male child with studies at home after talking all the time and got the same thing? And I believe what I try to say is, how do you support a child who has been, after you've tried to talk to the child several times about maybe something he's doing wrong, and then you're still getting the same response? How do you help such a child?
How do you support him in his studies? He said something about studies.
With studies, yes.
With his studies.
At home, yes.
Yes. I would say one should be more practical. It's not enough to tell a child, study. When is he going to study? So what of making a timetable with him? He can't spend the whole time studying now. So why don't we fish out some 2 hours or 1.5 hours that is convenient for him? Then he puts it down there. Where is he going to study? You say, when are you going to study? Where are you going to study? Is he going to study in the parlor with the TV on? Is he going to study close to the fridge? Is he going to study in his room, on his bed? So let there be a study corner. Let there be a table. Let it be identified. This is where you are going to study at this time. And then if you can be available for the first 2 weeks, the point is you need him to build a habit of studying. And to build a habit, you need to repeat something over a certain period of time. And 2 weeks, I think, is good enough. If you happen to be available or somebody else in your place who ensures that he just sits down with his books, don't worry whether he's really assimilating much or not. He opens his books, he has all the material he needs, and he pores over that book for 1.5 hours, 2 hours every day. After 2 weeks, leave him. He has formed it. But it's not a talking thing, it's a doing thing. One thing I don't like, and I use this opportunity to mention it, is to say, okay, let's get him private teacher. Line up private teachers to come and teach him. You know, they work. It's not the best. You confuse the child. Teachers will come with their own methods. And the boy will start deceiving himself. When I get home, the private teacher will teach me. When he gets home, he's tired and unprepared to learn. So he switches off again. When I get to school, my teacher will teach me. So he's neither in school nor at home. And more importantly, that opportunity to do his own learning. Learning is being taught plus your personal study. So that personal study is removed because teacher is still teaching. At school you're taught. At home you're taught. So when do you do your own study? Will you ever learn to study? And that's a very interesting skill for every human being. You know, so private teacher cannot be the solution. The child has to learn to. Of course, the nitty-gritty of learn to is still broad, because how do you study? Is it just to read? No. There should be a jotter, there should be a biro and a pen. You walk, you underline, you doodle, you draw, you write down major points, you reflect on it. A lot is happening. You know, so it's and it can become interesting. You know? We all remember how we went to school and prepared for JAM on topics we were never taught. How we had to plow through it on our own. And whenever you solved a problem and you got it, you were so energized. So yes, let them also share in that kind of joy of doing one's own learning. So I would say it's a doing thing. People don't have much time, I'm sorry. Perhaps begin with weekends. And then motivate them, encourage them, praise them when they do the right thing. There is something my former principal used to say at White Sands School, that don't focus on the outcome. Most parents focus on the outcome. Results has come out. Focus on the process. What leads to that outcome is the process. It is now, today, tomorrow. Is he doing that thing that we have agreed to do? That is the process. Focus on that. If he's doing that, you have many opportunities to reward, to correct, to strengthen, to refine. So that at the end, you now have what you know, and don't be too eager to see big results, big jump. Don't set targets that are outlandish. A boy is scoring 50% average, you now say you must score 90 for where? Go from 50 to 55. Focus on that. It will come. And once the habit is formed, I have many parents that tell me my children are not sleeping. What can I do? They read the whole night. You know, so the problem can even become that. And it's a nice one, I guess. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we have 2 more questions. So we just want to respond to them in 30 seconds each, if you can. Okay, so the first is, how can non-parents and non-teachers be part of the advisory system, I think, to work with parents and children? And then the last question after this.
Okay, well, I don't know what he means by non-parents. Maybe relatives, uncles, and all of that. And maybe if that is what he means, I'm sure the IWFI Family Advisory course can accommodate, because they need, like I said, they need to be trained. You know, it's delicate to leave your child in the hands of someone you don't trust, someone you don't know. You know, it's a gamble. So they need to be trained. You see, in the context of a school, you know, nobody can just, is a pure stranger. He's known, and the school has recommended him as an advisor. But of course, it's not, people can be advised by anybody. Somebody's uncle. These things happened in a very informal way in the communities and in the homes in those days. So somebody who is interested in a child is already tooled up for that work, because he wants to help and advise that child. But the parents should keep an eye, should work with that person. I think that's the key. They let the parents know what is going on.
Okay, our last question is asking, I understand that you deal mostly with the boys. I have also observed that denying the boys their sports activities to doing working suspension has been very effective to modeling boys at your range school. How can you suggest, sorry, just a second. Okay. How can you suggest ways a secondary school teacher of an all-girls school can instill discipline in her school?
I think we have the principal of an all-girls school here, at least one. So they may, in their time, be able to. I don't like talking about something I don't have a direct experience on. I can only tell you theory. So I think that those who have a direct experience on this will be able to tell us how they do it.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, sir. This has been really enlightening. You've really trashed a lot. So we were going to move straight down into the panel session. And then for this panel session, we have 5 panelists and our moderator, who I'm going to introduce so that we can kickstart the session. So the first person I'll be introducing here is Dr. Emeka Enemo. He's one of the first panelists is Dr. Emeka Enemo. He holds a PhD in education from Walden University, Baltimore. His education journey began with his BSc and MSc in architecture from the University of Nigeria, followed by a postgraduate diploma in education from the University of Lagos. He further honed his leadership skills in completing a senior management program at Lagos Business School and earning a master's in school management from the Universidad Complutense in Madrid. Professionally, Dr. Enemo started his career as an architect, working in the field from 1993 to 1997. He then transitioned into education, being as a tutor at Hembridge Study Center in Surulere, Lagos. His passion for education took him abroad to Strathmore School in Nairobi, where he taught in 1999. He then joined White Sands School, where he initially served as a vice principal and orientation director. And then after two decades of dedicated service, he assumed the role of principal in 2022. Outside his professional life, he enjoys writing poetry. He's an avid reader. He has also a keen interest in sports, and particularly badminton and tennis. The next, so that's our first panelist. The second panelist is Dr. David Lorenzo. He has lived in Nigeria for over 42 years and was the founding director of the White Sands School, the school that follows a strong educational philosophy, enriching parents as first educators of their children. Until April 2022, he was the principal of White Sands School. And before the White Sands School project, he was a lecturer of geophysics at the Department of Geology in Uniben. Okay, our last two, this is not in any anyway. So our last two panelists are Dr. Barrister Angela Ekwem. She's a lawyer. She likes to be identified as a lawyer, a family advisor, and a counselor. Simple and short. And then we have Mrs. Ijoma Amu, who is the current principal of Roadview Secondary School, Enugu. So, ladies and gentlemen, welcome this panelists to the session. And our moderator for this session is Mr. Charles Aigbuna, who has been a consultant to educational and social welfare NGOs.
Okay, I mean, you mean me, that's the Executive Secretary, Institute for Work and Family Integration. Fantastic. All right, so I'll be piloting the affairs of this panel session, and thank you for having me. Going straight into it, I would just like to find out from Emeka, how can parents balance their involvement in their children's education with other responsibilities? Emeka, please.
Okay, well, can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear. Shoot.
Okay, very good, sir. Well, first of all, I must commend Sebastian for the wonderful presentation. You know, he has reminded us of many things that perhaps were somehow in the shadows. You know, when you have been in this business for so many years, there are some things that you may not, you know, something that don't quite, you know, one may forget occasionally. Anyway, yeah, so talking about your question, the thing is that parents have to learn to prioritize. What's important to them. I believe that what's important should be, first of all, in the first place, God, and then family. Okay, and certainly after the spouse come the children. So it's a very important, before you even talk of professional work. So they need to prioritize. Now that does not mean that they're going to spend the entire time participating in their child's education. It's simply that they have to give a quality time to it. So for example, when Sid was talking about advisory, it's important that parents are available. When I say parents, I'm not only talking about mothers, because mothers tend to, you know, come forward much more than fathers. Both parents are needed. Of course, that is where both parents are around. But both parents are certainly needed to do the work of formation and, for example, to come for that advisory session. So they have to learn to prioritize. Of course, sometimes you can also use technology. I mean, if the father is so far away, he can, remotely, exceptionally anyway, and remotely also try to participate. The important thing is that the children have to see both parents really interested in what they are doing, and that has a great impact on how they also make progress.
Okay, thank you. We're talking about this parental involvement in the education of children. So and you've been in this business for a while, as well as generally all the panelists have been in this business of parental involvement in education of children. And then over the years, I'm sure you've seen and experienced outcomes. So one is wondering if the benefits that you have seen in students' outcomes in this family engagement since the implementation of the family advisory system in your school. Before I allow you to catch your breath, I will say maybe Dr. David should perhaps start off with that. Let's hear from an expression point of view, what benefits have you observed? Dr. Lorenzo, please.
Okay. I have seen many, basically the benefit that I could say is that, we get a child that is well-formed, that is, sure of himself, at least in the short term. If there is that advisory that is well done, you get a child that is well-formed, from the point of view of character, of worldview, of attitude in life. So I think that is the thing. Later on, it starts showing. I have seen many students, many persons, in their they came to White Sands when they were in JS1. Now they are married. Then you could see the difference immediately. You could see the difference for those whose parents have been active, in their following up, who were actually, strong advocates of the advisory system. You could see that, and then of course those other children whose parents were, a bit distant as regards this. As you could see, those that came to White Sands, many of them came for different reasons. They came to White Sands because they see that it's a good school, for academics, not realizing that there are other things that we take, important. Then of course, those who see, who actually join us in that belief that the parents are first, educators, and then follow, the requirements of family advisory, who are there, end up to have children who are, shall we say, better off in life later on. Anyway, so that's the basically. Of course, you also find results even in the short term. You have very good academic results. I have seen, students who end up in Harvard, in MIT, good universities, as a result precisely of this all, round formation that we offer. I don't know. I've answered the question, no?
No, you did. Now, moving on to the ladies. Auntie Joma, what has been your experience so far, the outcomes of these on the kids?
Maybe she has to unmute.
Okay.
Ijoma. Yes, good.
Good day, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone.
Yeah,
okay, I'll just share some testimonies. Okay,
just to go ahead. Yeah.
What Dr. David has said. So basically, we have our JSS2 students. Initially, she was having challenge with her shyness and even confidence and all that. So we noticed that during advisory, and she shared with us that even in the classroom with something that she knows, she finds it difficult to, respond to. Sorry about that. Okay, so what did we do? Through the advisory system, we were able to identify that problem, and then we discussed with the child, sharing with her different things that she can do. And then we also share that with her parents. And because we have identified our problem, you can see that vital role that advisory plays for us. So because we were able to identify that problem, it's now specific to that particular child, and we're able to support the child. And today, in fact, she can address the whole school. That's just one. There's also one SS1 student. Her own problem is constantly stressed. She feels stressed up in the school, and then she feels also that education is overwhelming, is a scam. That's her ideology, and we're able to pick that through advisory. So what did we do? Thank God we also offer philosophical anthropology for our girls. So we started with the basic fundamental question: what exactly is education? And Sebi did justice to that. So through that one-on-one, we're able to get the child to think through her thought processes about education. And we're able to convince her, and the parents too. We alerted them, and we all worked together. We partnered to support this child. And today, I can tell you that child, she is currently in SS2 now, and she's doing so well, So through that means, we're able to get that problem. There is also another child, she wasn't doing well in mathematics, but through advisory, we were able to look at her results, analyze it critically, and we found out that all calculation-related subjects were having issues with it. And what did we do? We decided that there is need to allocate extra time for these subjects, okay? Even if you won't do sciences in the senior school, you still need knowledge of mathematics to solve even real life problems. So we're able to identify that, and then the parents, luckily for us, were able to see the need, and then together we try to boost the child's confidence through giving her, simpler. We had to go to the scratch, in fact. And she started small from JSS1 work, JSS2, and gradually she picked. So we're able to identify this because of we had that one-on-one with the child. So there are so many other testimonies. In fact, the worst case scenario I've observed myself, I've had a child who she doesn't, in her house, she has never experienced going to church, reading the Bible, In fact, her own experience of family life is devoid of God. So, but through chat, a lot of things came up that even made me understand why she was in that kind of situation. So we started with the need for God. Okay, I introduced her to the priest. I said, just go there, tell her you don't know how to do spiritual direction. Just once you say that the priest will start up something with you. So we did that in her JSS2, JSS3, SS1. In fact, today, the child has graduated, but before she graduated, she has started leading prayers in her house. She told me that going to spiritual direction has really helped her realize the need for a divine power, that she She never cared about anything. She doesn't give a damn. But then she has realized that there is also need to ask for divine help. And she gave me a few testimonies of how that has also helped her to, achieve something, do so well. In fact, it was just like a miracle, And this same particular child, through advisory, we realized that she has suicidal tendencies. We started tackling that, and to the glory of God, she's a bit stable now. So advisory has really helped us to support a lot of girls in our school and even families. So let me leave it at that.
Thank you. Emeka, you want to drop one more story? And Angela, one story of the benefits. Just one, so that we can move on.
Okay.
The benefit of, okay, Angela.
Okay. Angela first. Okay, Angela, ladies first. All right.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks to all the previous speakers. Even though I'm not a great fan of Liverpool Football Club, I love their mantra, you never walk alone. And that's the whole idea of this family advisory. The advisors or tutors, like we call them, in the school where I work, they actually serve as advocates, holding the hands of these young people, the young learners, and when you speak to these children, you see that so many of them are closed in. But over time, with the help of their advisors or their tutors, the tendency to break this facade that they've built around them is so obvious that you see it being broken. And the child that was prior to being engaged with an advisor or a tutor will start opening up and all of that. We had a situation where a child found it difficult to reach her parents. And sometimes the solutions to these things might not just be the expected ones. She was advised to go home on a Saturday morning. She should wake up, go into her parents' room, decide to tidy the room without being told, decide to just do chores in the house without anybody hounding her or telling her what to do. And of course, the parents were very shocked, that she could do that. This is somebody who was so closed in that she didn't even interact with anybody in the family. So after she did it and they asked her, so what prompted this? He said, I'm learning to be a better human being. And one day I'm going to do this in my own home, as a mother, as a wife, and that was just a very great thing to take away. So the advisory system, holding their hands while they walk this journey of life, is very, very interesting. And I like what most people who are watching are suggesting about taking this to public schools. Maybe this is now what IWFI will have to think about, reduce the cost for the teachers in public schools, because it's not everybody that will be an advisor. Like Mr. Sebastian said, the maturity, the patience, the discretion of this tutor or advisor, the ability to be able to listen to a child, to understand them, not listening to reply. Listen to understand the child before you make that reply. And of course, while you're at it, your ability to recall past conversations that you would have had with this child. You can imagine a child walking in for a second session of advisory, and you're asking them about the previous things you discussed, or talking about some celebration that had happened in their family. That creates a great connect between the advisor and the advisee. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. I'll be coming back to you, Angela. Emeka, you just want to drop one story and then we'll move on?
Yes, so far we've been talking about the effects of the advisory, maybe for children who are still in school. But it's also interesting to see that we have feedback about, what those who have already left school have said about advice. So, for example, there was we had an event, I think it was last year, we had a small dinner for parents, basically because the mothers wanted to be a bit more visible in school because we seem to be only engaging fathers. So we organized a dinner for couples, and we invited two old boys and their spouses. I wanted them to let us know what, in fact, I wanted their spouses to tell us, about them, what were their impressions. So one thing that they said, and which they said was the effect of the school's, the advisory effort, that's the boys themselves now saying it, was that their husbands were not shy at all. They were not shy at all. They were very confident and very bold in approaching them, and they were always forthright and honest, in approaching it. So even when they were wooing them, for marriage, they were not shy at all. So, in other words, the idea is that our boys, when they are doing the advisory, what happens is that they are talking to an adult, and they are talking to an adult freely. Okay, so that allows them to express themselves in such a way that later on they now learn also how to do so with other people. Okay, so that was a very interesting feedback that we got from these two. One of them was the senior prefect in the school before. So, this idea of boldness, of I don't know how to describe it, but being able to interact.
I get you. I get you.
You get what I'm saying? Yes. So that was very interesting.
Yeah, I remember that event very well. Now, one thing I see in vogue is the things of single parents, and I'm just wondering what effects or impact does Angela, this for you? What effects or impact does single parenting have on the total formation of children?
Okay, so the ideal situation is where we have the father and the mother in a family. But life happens, circumstances can just thrust upon you the single parenthood. That should not be seen as a disability, but then to take the most advantage. In fact, I think for families of that nature, they actually need this advisory system even more, because now they have somebody in the school system who is working with them in the raising of this child. Because the advisory, yes, the emphasis is not majorly on the academics, but towards other things, the acquisition of virtues, the morals that will stand them well in the society. And of course, when you're speaking to such a parent, is to ensure that there's no feeling of condemnation within them, maybe because of the circumstances of the birth of the child. You make them realize that it's even a good thing that they agreed to birth this child instead of doing away with him or her. So you let them know that you're not coming in to usurp the position of the other parent. And you also allow the parents to let you into the family so that this child can now receive a robust upbringing by at least telling them things. Because the tendency in such family setup is for such children to either be overindulged by the parents because, I'm the only one doing it, so I might as well pay mind to the needs and wants, in fact, to the wants of this child. And you also find such children having this challenge of creating this virtual world where they are more used to the things on the app and on the devices that they own than even the contents of their wardrobe or the things that are within their homes. So to advise such parents is to ensure that they understand that it is not a disability in the first place and there's no condemnation, especially where is a single parenthood not arising from widowhood and all of that, maybe by reason of divorce or just somebody who had children out of wedlock. remove that condemnation, affirm them for every good step they've taken in raising that child well. And that's the hallmark of a good human being. When you walk through landmines, right, and you were able to succeed and didn't get hurt, you owe it to the people coming behind you to warn them that, hey, I walked this path and there are so many landmines that I was lucky to escape them. So just be mindful how you're walking on those landmines. You can't just because you had the disadvantage or misfortune of just having the child out of wedlock and you just leave the child. Well, after all, what's my business? I got pregnant and I had you. So if you're careless with yourself, you will also end up like me. That's not the true nature of a good human. So when you realize that this person is making an effort, you can only come in and as an advisor to hold their hands, both their hands, the child and the parent, whichever of the parents that is, whether the man or the woman, and let them know that their situation is not a disability and that that child in that circumstance can actually thrive if given the right environment to succeed. Thank you.
Wow, thank you. I like that. It's not a disability. Dr. David, do you have a story to share on this subject?
Well, I have a story, but this time, well, single parent because she is a widow. And she happened to be my former student in the university. And yeah, okay, so you have a situation like that. And yeah, and the boy, typical boy that is a bit naive, you know, intelligent, but yeah, not serious with his studies. And this lady used to come to me to cry, you know. What advice will you give? What advice? And I said, well, try. Until one day, it just occurred to me that, well, I just told the lady, look, you always come to cry. Why don't you tell your son that you're a widow? You know, let him see the magnitude of the situation. He's not young anymore. Talk to him as a widow. And then she started doing that, no? You know, talking to him, but look, I am a widow. You know, remember your father died, And this boy, you know, but after that, this boy became more serious to the point that by the time that he was in SS2, he was a member of the mathematics team that actually competed in the cowbell mathematics. So from a boy who is just running around, no, not serious with his studies. So the key thing is that, you know, it would not have happened if that mother had no access, you know, to advisory, because he would have just been treated just like any other student, and then the boy would have ended to be a mediocre student. But that only happened precisely because there was this avenue in the school. Anyway,
that was very inspiring. Now we're going to end by looking at some hard facts, because there could be challenges faced by parents, educators, and policymakers in promoting all what we'll be talking about, this parental involvement in children's education. So what are these challenges, and then how can they be addressed? Maybe we'll start with the ladies. Ijoma, Angela, who will go first?
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay, yes, we can hear you, Ijoma.
Okay, so basically, we all face a whole lot of challenges. Maybe I'll start with general. Definitely, as a parent, as a school, we all face time constraints as a challenge. We keep, you know, struggling to balance work and school involvement, same with parents, you know, even students, you know. So I think for this particular one, there may be maybe a flexible engagement options maybe for parents, if truly the parents is, the work schedule is such that he's truly busy, maybe a virtual meetings can help. Or as we are having this webinar, the recorded one can be, sent to that person just to help the parent to have a touch of what has happened. So flexible meeting schedules can help. And then virtual engagement options, it has also helped us, because these days you find out that a lot of parents, one has Japan, the other person is in Nigeria, and it's not realistic having them on ground. So this flexibility has helped us to, connect with both parents. And then also lack of confidence or knowledge of the school has been a challenge. What I mean by that is that some parents really don't care about what is going on in the school. They don't know the policy of the school, and it's also a bit of a concern. So I feel that school can support such by constantly engaging parents, reminding them of school policies, school activities. That way they will be there. And then maybe for educators, our own is this thing of not having people understanding what we are doing. It's sometimes difficult when you're saying A, it's as if the parents are not, understanding what you are doing. And that can only happen, through this one-on-one. Advisory section has also helped us to conquer such. Even when you send out those messages, you realize that they don't read them. And when you now maybe do something or maybe execute the plan you wanted to communicate, it's as if they're fighting against it because they weren't, reading what you are saying. So sometimes getting them to come for the advisory happens to be an opportunity to, engage them one-on-one and explain things to them. It has also been of help. Then another thing I found challenging is technology. A lot of schools are now into blended learning, but some schools are not doing that. Even while some schools are doing blended learning, some parents are still struggling with, being like Gen Zs, like learning those things. So what can happen is also maybe schools from time to time conducting a session where we can teach them how to access basic information. Sometimes you ask for an email, a parent will tell you, I don't read email, I don't access my email. Even WhatsApp, they will tell you, I don't have time and all that, And these are means that we can reach out and communicate. And then we have limited resources sometimes. We may not have all the things we need to support both parents and teachers. So that's where it's also important that the higher authorities support us so that we don't run into such challenges. So I think these are a few things I would like to share under this.
Yeah. So Angela, some challenges parents could face. Yeah.
I'll just hit on a few things. Yeah, the time is always an old excuse, but then for this same child, you claim to be working hard, right? So what is in giving out these 30 minutes very constructively used for the good of this child? Because the tendency is for most parents to believe that a school is a manufacturing company. So they bring in the raw materials, the children, and at the end of 6 years or however many years they are spending, they expect a finished product. And it doesn't work like that. You have to be involved. And like our guest speaker said, when you notice a child whose parents are involved, there's always a marked difference. So it's to admit the child and admit your school into the life of that child. That is the family. Then again, for the school itself, is to ensure that they bring out the resources to train There are teachers who will serve as tutors. In the school where I work, we do that, and we even engage the services of external tutors who have real formation to also hold the hands of these children and work with them. Because you see that at the end of the day, when there's a challenge or something untoward happens, suddenly there is time for this parent to attend to it. So that time one excuse of not having time we have to deal with parents. Let them create the time. It's not that much of a time. And this is something that will give you a lifetime of peace of mind, okay, and pleasure. Then another thing that we also need to show the parents, like what we used to do in the school here, we started grading these advisory meetings, and they constitute part of the final grade of the children. So when the children realize that, oh, if my mommy doesn't come for advisory meeting, my daddy doesn't come, that will cost me a mark. Right now, we have a situation in the school where a girl is missing being the best student in her class because of 0.25 mark. Her mother came for the advisory, her father didn't come. So for this term, she's on her father's case, insisting that he must come, even if he's coming via Zoom, so that he does not cost her this 0.025 mark that will enable her become the best in her class. So whatever incentive that will work to just get the parents involved in the well-being of their children should be deployed by the individual schools that are operating this advisory system. Thank you.
Wow, brilliant. So that brings us to the end of this webinar. However, we'll just take a final word from each of the panelists. Just one final word. I would like to start with, and the final word should just be 30 seconds. So Dr. Emeka Enemo, a final word. Okay, why we're struggling with that?
No, he's muted.
Emeka, you're muted. Emeka, you're muted.
Okay, yes, sorry. Yeah, okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, loud and clear.
Yeah, so what I was saying was that the advisory system is such an important feature of the kind of schools that all of us here are running, at least all the heads of schools here, that we really need to put a lot more effort, into making sure that it works. It is actually our point of departure. It is what makes us stand out, and it's something that's very attractive to parents. And perhaps one big challenge is teachers, because we need teachers, we need the resource persons to handle it. As the school expands, it becomes more difficult. So it's to work a bit more on the aspect of, okay, when the school expands, more training, and that's where IWFI comes in, giving deeper training, maybe more frequent training to those our teachers, and also expanding further to see whether we can get resources from outside. But all in all, it's something that is fantastic. We should continue to promote it, because without it, really, we don't have the kind of schools that we want to have.
Okay, that brings me to Ms. Ijoma Amu, a final word.
Okay, thank you. My own final word is in support parents who are very busy, how they can support their children. Someone shared with me that she was finding it difficult until she started having this deep work mindset. She explained that she told herself, since she's finding it difficult to support her family, she can now start seeing family work as her real professional work. So that is one aspect of her work. And then the other one, and in order to make it really professional, she decided to pay herself for her family work. So that helped her to now know that since this is a paid job, I have to do it. So it made her to really realize that all her excuses that I don't have time wasn't really true, because she now realized that she can spend 15 minutes, 30 minutes, which is nothing compared to the time she gives to her professional work. So it's about the mindset, because when we give our children that attention, they feel valued, they feel, being cared for, which is what our keynote speaker mentioned, the home being the best. And when that happens, you see that your children will not only thrive, but they will have that connection, which is more important than the money you are giving to them. And also to plead with both educators and policy makers, is there a way we can have, a flexible work space that can allow parents attend to family, their children's need in school? Some countries are doing it already, so we can leverage on what they are doing, and that would really help parents to see that since this is now a policy thing, nationwide, is very important. So I should take it as serious as the work that I'm doing. Thank you for listening.
All right, thank you very much. And finally, Angela, final words.
Okay, my final words. For the children, we should endeavor to listen, to understand, not to reply them. Pay attention to their unspoken words. Pay attention to their unspoken words. Try and keep the confidences, except where there's a compelling reason to urge the child to share those things with their parents. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you. That sounds so sublime, and I feel you've even taken the final words out of the mouth of Dr. David. So that brings us to the end of today's program. I want to specially thank each of these panelists here present for sharing your wealth of experience with the audience, and to thank each one here present. I need to assure you that you're at the right place at the right time, doing the right thing. We have to take this thing to this discussion to not the next level at the next level, but we have to take the next step towards actualization of many of the items we've discussed here today. Once again, happy International Day of Education to all of you, and have a good day.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.